A couple of expectations specifically have to do with the tax rate. The first is to see if the exemption limit could be raised from the current 250,000 rupees to about 3 lakh rupees, which itself would provide a lot of relief to the middle class. The second, as an alternative, is to change the 5% slab rate, which currently applies to taxpayers up to a limit of 5 lakhs, and to increase that and apply the 5% slab rate to taxpayers up to 7.5 lakh rupees. Either of these two would go a long way in ensuring that the middle class bears a lesser burden, or perhaps a more appropriate burden, when it comes to paying in their share of taxes. The second thing that the finance minister can look at doing is increasing the exemption limit for women taxpayers. Again, with an increasing number of women today participating in the workforce, this will ensure that women are not overly burdened with a significantly high tax rate. From an individual tax point, two more measures are widely expected or hoped for. The first has to do with leave travel assistance. With travel becoming cheaper and people availing greater holidays and more holidays, there is a hope that the LTA will be moved from once in 2 years to becoming an annual affair, such that individuals can avail of this exemption on an annual basis. Additionally, apart from just the airfare, which is currently covered by the LTA, if the finance minister could consider including aspects such as boarding and lodging within the exemption limit, that will also help individual taxpayers significantly. Finally, from an individual standpoint, employee stock option plans, or ESOPs, are something that we are seeing more and more employees avail of. Currently, there are two stages of taxation. Employees are taxed first at the time of exercise and thereafter at the time of sale, and this often results in a cash outflow to the employees, sometimes even without a corresponding inflow, especially where it has resulted in a loss to the individual concerned. So moving from a two-stage taxation to a single point of taxation only at the time of sale of employees would help individuals and companies as well, as they use this as a lucrative means in order to ensure that they get the right talent to their companies.
In the budget, I would say that there are 4 things which I look forward. Number 1, let them not give the loan waiver, but then immediately stop the interest computations on the old loans and allow the fresh loans to be taken by the farmers. Second, the old loans can be paid by the farmers as in the next 5-6 years. Third, if at all you need to give some money to the farmer, better make the input prices subsidized to the level which is absolutely gives 6,000 rupees in the household in real terms, and subsidize inputs not in the way it has been done in the earlier governments. Subsidize the inputs by the level which will reduce by 6,000 the cost of cultivation. If the cost of cultivation is reduced by 6,000, that 6,000 gets into the farmer's pocket and the farmer continues to work. And therefore, I would suggest that use the Panchayat Raj system in order to distribute the inputs at the lowest minimum price, and the entire difference from the factory to the price be met by the central government and the state governments equally. The last one is that we have not reformed the markets. The farmer faces his most distressful point in the market. That is the primary objective of the government, to reduce the inefficiencies in the market, to reduce the role of the touts, to make the market free for the farmer. Farmer will not be having any distress if he gets, if not 40 rupees and not 2 rupees, say 35 rupees for his product if he is selling in the market. He will be in fact happy to sell it at 10 rupees even. And then in the market it should be available at 12 rupees or 15 rupees. That's something which is essential for the central and the state government to get into the reforms.
This is the first budget of the full-fledged budget of the new government, and we've already had one GST Council meeting which was held a few weeks back. We don't expect too many changes in terms of rates in the budget because all the rates have already been captured in the GST Council meeting. There may probably be a couple of tinkering of the rates, like the rate on cement will probably come down from 28% to 18%. But what I would probably expect from this budget is a vision or a roadmap for the next 5 years on how GST laws are going to be simplified. The government is talking about GST 2.0. As of now, there is a disconnect between what the government is thinking and what is happening on the ground. We would need a proper appellate mechanism to be put in place. We would need the litigation to probably come down in GST. So I would probably expect a proper roadmap from the government, giving the vision for how the GST law is going to be going forward for the next 4-5 years, and also how the returns process would be simplified. I think if these are met, I think the expectations would be of a large majority of taxpayers would probably be met.
There are 5 major things that I would anticipate the finance minister to come out with in a budget later this week. The first 3 have to do with measures to boost investor confidence, and the second has to do with ensuring tax certainty. From an investor confidence as well as spurring growth standpoint, I would expect that the finance minister will consider a reduction in the overall corporate tax rate. Today, corporates are taxed at approximately 35%, which is an extremely high rate when you compare India with the rest of the world. Reducing that rate to 25% is something that the industry has been expecting, and in fact, it is in keeping with what the finance minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley, had laid out several years back in his budget plan. Secondly, the abolition of the minimum alternative tax, which is at 20%, is something that the government can consider. With a reduction in tax rates, with overall phasing out of deductions as well as exemptions, and with increased compliance, the minimum alternative tax is something which is resulting in a significant cost to a number of taxpayers. Moving this or taking it out completely from the statute books is a measure that will boost economic growth significantly. Alternatively, the government can look at ensuring a credit of the minimum alternative tax for an undetermined period rather than for the current cap of years that exists. Finally, from a rate standpoint, moving the dividend distribution tax from a tax paid by the company to a withholding, which is completely creditable to the tax holder, is a measure that the government can take as well. As an alternative, the government can ensure a credit of the dividend distribution tax, especially in multi-layered companies' structures, to ensure that there is no leakage by the time that the dividend finally reaches the shareholder. From a tax certainty standpoint, it is expected that the government will introduce a direct tax code in the coming months. This has been on the anvil for a number of years, and this is something that the government must do, both with a view to ensure certainty, because there have been a number of court judgments, contrary views in a number of positions, and the government will do well to relook at a number of the provisions and ensure that there is certainty and clarity to taxpayers. Secondly, businesses have evolved over time. We're moved to a digital economy. There are different modes of doing business, different structures which are in place, and India is a signatory and one of the adopters of the BEPS program. And therefore, introducing a direct tax code which incorporates a number of these measures, whether it's significant economic presence or whether it is any of the other measures which have been agreed by India under the BEPS program, into the DTC, will bring a lot of clarity to taxpayers as well as to investors.
The most important thing that I would like to look out in the budget is a significant disinvestment proceeds, significant measures to recapitalize the banks, banking sector reform. And now the measures to alleviate the farm distress, particularly in a year of subnormal monsoons, and some amount of reform in terms of the direct corporation taxes. And most importantly, I think we in the last 5 years have increased our tariffs, and we should really get rid of this protectionist regime, so that in fact I would say that reduce the number of rates and reduce the height of rates and then unify them to somewhere about 7%. But this can't be done in 1 year. It's a program for the 5 years, but then they should initiate.